Hi, here's a wee follow-up to my previous wee clip regarding the search for our family. You'll probably see by this here, this is the Warrington Cemetery where my last clip was made about. Now I wanted to show you where our family was buried here. It took quite a bit of time, but we did do it. I remember me and Tez and June went to the cemetery, and to give you an idea, this is supposed to be the newest bit of the cemetery. Then over here was the oldest part. However, I remember we were coming along here with Tez, and Tez noticed the grave here. This one here is actually my dad's brother, Richard, and his family. His wife Gladys is there, and down the bottom you'll see Colin Gemmell. Colin and I was the youngest in the street, as I said in the previous clip. We were both born in February. Colin was a week or so before me. But we were the babies in the street at that time. But as you can see, Colin passed away a year or so ago. And that's where Colin and his dad and mum's buried. Further along, just at the edge of the old part, is my Uncle Sam, and that's him there. You'll see the picture there, Gladys, his wife, that's Sam in the middle, and his daughter, Patricia. I remember Patricia and her mum came to Scotland way back. That's when I had a motorbike at the time, I remember that. But sadly, as you can see, it passed away. But you'll notice the photograph on the headstone. There's a better picture there. There's Patricia, she died young. There's Elsie, and there's Uncle Sam. Now Uncle Sam had this photograph put on the gravestone. That was when Patricia and Elsie passed away. And I actually met him when my brother Roy passed away. We were at Matlock Avenue, and he came out of the back kitchen and he came over to me and he says, "You're Jim's laddie, aren't you?" And I looked at him and he says, "You're the image of your dad." So I asked him what it was like in those days and so on and so forth. And he says to me, regarding that photo you commented on about the gravestone, of course, I'm not in there yet. He says, but you've heard the old saying, if you want a job done, do it yourself. Well, I planned all my cemetery and the layer and everything out, and I wanted to make sure that photograph that I've cherished all my life is put on the stone, so that's why I put it on. Obviously, when I don't need to worry about anything like that, when I go, all is I need is a wee bit mention on the bottom of the stone, which he did. However, getting back to Matlock Avenue, when he was speaking to me, he says, a way back, we all used to go to the pub near this Warrington Cemetery for a wee drink, a few pints, a few whiskies and so on. And your dad was always there at that time. So what we did, there was a group of us, about 5 of us, family. We had a good drink and then we'd get a carry out. And what we used to do, we used to go to the cemetery. Oh, it's getting a bit spooky now, I think. And they used to come down, that was the main road up here, they used to come all the way down here to here. That's where my gran and Grandad Hall, right, they're buried there. And he says, we went down there with a carry out and we sat round the grave sort of thing, and we'd have a wee drink, a blether and so on. In other words, that was our way of visiting our grandparents, etc. We did that every time, and we did it for years until the family slowly drifted apart. He says, I now live in it's a sort of care home, but it's like a hotel, he says. He says, you're booked in and out, you go in, everything's there, hairdressers, there's even a bar, everything you can think of is inside this complex. And of course, up on the first landing, there are various rooms, and I've got a room up there. Anyway, that's what I did, but your dad was one of us, and we missed him very dearly when he went up to Scotland. That was my Uncle Sam. But looking at the cemetery here, we were told by Elsie that opposite where my granddad was, there's another layer there. And that's our family too. So we did find it, me and Tez, and there's a headstone. Arthur Horwood, I believe it was the brother of Henry, our grandfather. And it goes down to Sutton and Moore Horwood, etc. But we did try and search into that family. I got so far, and then I stopped because other things I wanted to do. But getting back to these parts here, as I say, that was Richard's grave. Further along in this part was Sam and Elsie's grave. We didn't know it at the time, but we must have walked all over here umpteen times, me and Tess. And it wasn't until later we discovered we had a family grave there. And that grave was actually, as you can see here, on the 8th December 1929, Ronald Gemmell. That was our oldest brother. This is a section of the birth certificate. You'll notice 34 Cartwright Street, where we were all brought up. In those days, of course, you didn't go into hospital to have a kiddie. You gave birth at home, then you'd get a midwife come and visit you, that sort of thing. I noticed there was a record in St Barnabas Church. Mum and Dad must have got Ronald christened on the 5th of December. But sadly, Ronald passed away 3 days later. So it was obviously heartbreaking for them. But we did find this grave, and it's kind of heartbreaking in a way when you see it. There is no headstone, nothing. He's in this section, he's in this section here. There's another wee photo of it there. He's behind this headstone here in there. There's a layer there, and there's actually 3 in there. The 3 was, first of all, was Henry Holroyd's former wife, and she was only in her 30s. She was rushed into hospital, and apparently she passed away in there. And so we opened another layer, Henry, and that's where he was buried. Sadly, when Ronald passed away, he was buried in there as well. But there was also someone else. Henry had a son, I believe he was in his 20s or so. He was found drowned in the canal in Warrington, and he's buried there too. Now, the times we went to the cemetery, we never knew this. This all came to light when we'd done a wee bit of research at home. As far as I understand, the grave is still the same. There's no markings or ever anything. But if I stayed near there, I would have rectified that. I would have put something down there. I'm a wee bit older now. I don't think I'm fit enough to do anything like that. I don't think I'd manage it. But it gives you an idea how we found our family. The most important thing was finding Colin, not Colin, Ronald, in this part here of the cemetery. As I say, there's you go. This road here, as I say, is this road here. So you can see how close we were when we're going up and down this road. Richard's grave's along there, and of course back this way is Uncle Sam's. But just to think we passed it as many times and we never knew. But we've still not went back to see it. But as I said in another clip, there's always someone on these local sites who are prepared to help you. And that's what happened here. The one kind person says, I've got a list of everyone who's buried in this cemetery. And I gave them a couple of particulars and they sent me these photos. There was a couple more photographs right now, but it's basically the same. Just a bit waste ground, no markings whatsoever. But to verify that, I did contact the Warrington Council, so to speak, and they put me onto the department that deals with all this. And they kindly done a search for me, and I think I've put it on the previous clip I made when Ronald passed away and so on, the numbers of people in the grave, etc, etc. I think I did that in the previous one. But anyway, that's now a wee story about our family. We know exactly where about. These colours here, it's the different religions, you know, Roman Catholic and so on. This is English church sort of thing. But it's kind of upsetting when you see the likes of graves of your own family. But you must remember, this was during the war, when there's only one person in the family working, which was my granddad Holroyd. He obviously found it difficult, but he found time and money to open a lair. Sadly, most of this side of the cemetery, the headstones are broken. You get the nice one here and there, nice ones. Most of them are all broken, they're sinking and so on. But I suppose that's what war does. Anyway, that's another wee story about our family and where we found them. By the new